All right, welcome to episode number 24 of the Oklahoma Weather Show. Here it is, June 18th. We are just a couple days away from the official start of summer. Lots going on here in Oklahoma. And of course, we continue our weather show, our weekly podcast, and Jonathan Conder in charge of today's guest. So, Jonathan, take it away.
Well, we've had a bunch of different topics, and episode number 24, so we're chugging along here, and, we rotate who's in charge each week, and I was thinking, so, what's coming up for my topic, and one thing that we see on weather radar every July, and it's a weird deal. So Doppler radar, we can see obviously rain and snow and hail, we can see tornadoes, but we can also see bugs, bees, birds, and bats. And every year in July, we can see the bats coming out of the alabaster cavern. So today I thought, man, we need to have Melinda Hickman. Thanks for joining us. You're a biologist with, are you with the state of Oklahoma? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I am a wildlife diversity biologist for the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, and been with the agency 25 years, and most of my projects are western Oklahoma, and I deal with just what you were talking about: bees, birds, butterflies, bats, those kind of things.
Now, I was told you are like the bat guru, like you run the Selman Bat Watch program. So before this topic is a little bit different. We usually talk all weather, and we're going to kind of transition from we're radar experts. We see something on radar. What are we seeing? I'm going to share what it looks like. Are you guys seeing that right there?
Not yet. There you go.
There we go.
So this is an example down in the hill country down in Texas. The bats come out of their caves and they look like a little ring. So from the center of the cave, you're going to see as the bats fly a little bit higher off the ground and away from the cave, you're going to see these little rings. And this is just an example. So where other targets might be, rain on radar, like over here near Fredericksburg, and then your Marble Falls, those little circles, that's what they're going to look like. So, Melinda, tell us about, number one, what bats are we seeing on radar? Tell us about that.
Yes, the bats that you're seeing are the same bats that we have coming out of Selman Bat Cave. It's the Mexican free-tailed bat, which for Oklahoma is kind of fun. That's our official state mammal, by the way, flying mammal of Oklahoma. And the reason that you can see so many, or you can actually see them on the radar, is that there are so many of them. They're anywhere from, I think the smallest is a 50,000 population in one of those caves that you were showing, up to 20 million near Austin.
Wow.
Now, would that be the same bat that comes out of Guadalupe, the Guadalupe Mountains? Why am I drawing a mind blank right now? In Texas and New Mexico, southeastern New Mexico. What is the name?
Carlsbad.
Carlsbad.
Yes. Yes, exact same species of bats. And all of this, the Mexican free-tailed bat, these are females that are actually coming out of these caves. Into July, the pups are also starting to fly. And the Mexican free-tailed bat females is all about protection, and being in these large colonies is a protection method. So it's a great thing. They just have to have a certain kind of cave, though, to make it work.
So what are the males doing? They're sending the women out to do the work. What are the male bats back doing?
So glad you asked that question. Actually, the males have already done their thing. These Mexican free-tailed bats are migratory bats. So they come up from Mexico starting about February, and they are actually following the migration route of the nasty corn borer moth that's in the daytime in the crops there in Mexico, and they're mating, laying eggs. The evening, these moths come up out of the fields. They go up to about 10,000 feet, and the Mexican free-tailed bats, and when they're ready to fly out for the evening, they also go up about 10,000 feet, and they're following these moths and actually eating them while they're flying at 10,000 feet. As they're migrating north in the daytime, the males and the females are together really for the first time in a year. So you can imagine what's happening. And the the males are mating with as many females as they possibly can as they're in turn migrating north. And about the middle part of Texas is where it changes. The males split off and form, we have a term for everything, you know. They split off into bachelor colonies, and at that point they are nomadic. They range wherever the insects are and wherever they can find daytime roost. And these bachelor colonies are anywhere from 50 up to maybe 5,000 males.
When do the bats migrate back to Mexico? Like, how long are they in Alabaster Cavern?
Well, actually, I hate to say this, they're not in Alabaster Caverns. They're actually in the Selman Bat Cave, which is only about 7 miles away as the bat flies. So on your radar, it's going to look like it's in about the same location.
Now,
go ahead.
For people who are watching this in Oklahoma City, they may not know where the Alabaster Caverns or Selman Cave. Now, I know it's about a 30-minute drive from Woodward, but can you describe where the state park is a little bit?
Sure, with pleasure. They are located 5 miles south of the town of Freedom, and this is in Woodward County. And they're south of the Cimarron River, and it is about 30 miles north of Woodward, and about 30 miles west of Alva.
Now, how long has it been documented that bats have been coming to this area?
Well, we know, based on information inside the cave, we'll leave it that way, that they've been there at least 100 years. I'm sure longer than that. So what makes the bat watches that we offer to visitors so very special is they're watching something that's been going on the same way for well over 100 years.
You were talking it's almost like clockwork, where basically you can just, they come out like right around sunset every single night?
I wish I could say that. These bats, we document all the conditions. There are a couple of mesonet sites close by, so we can take barometric readings, light, the amount of light in the sky, all kinds of temperature, wind speed, relative humidity, all that kind of good stuff. And we have been charting it for, 15 years now, and we can't find a pattern. They come out when something triggers, but we don't know what it is. And as you guys have probably seen on your radar, no matter where that cave is, whether it's western Oklahoma or the panhandle of Texas, they're all coming out about the same time each night.
Hey, I know what it is, actually. I've seen it in the movies. Somebody just has to go into the cave and scream, and then all of the bats come rolling out.
I wish it would work that way, because, when you've got 75 people waiting, and you're like, they're going to come out,
Yeah.
Then they do, and it really is amazing.
It is. I remember actually when I was in Carlsbad watching you're waiting, and they had a speaker system that was set up in Carlsbad, and all of a sudden the static, I believe it was, just going through the speakers, would begin to kind of let out a hiss, and then all of a sudden, for about 30 minutes, it felt like you just had the sky went dark, and you just had all these bats flying out, and it was quite amazing. And I guess they just went out and had their fun in the desert for the night, and then I guess they returned in the morning.
They returned. They're back into the cave by about 7 a.m. They start coming back about 4 a.m., which is, I wish it's something that we could offer to the public to see, because it's actually more impressive and more intimate than watching them go out across over your head, because they come from way up high, and when they're over the cave themselves, they fold their wings and just shoot down, and when they get level with the cave entrance, they pop the wings and shoot in. It's the sound and the movement is, I don't know, I don't have words for it. It's
I have a
amazing.
question for you. When we see this on radar, and I know Jonathan had this picture up just a little bit ago. Obviously, seeing the circles, I would have. I'm surprised to see that they spread out in this ring pattern here, as opposed to all just flying one direction. Clearly, it kind of looks like maybe they have tended to fly south here, and most of these pictures seem to have a darker. Maybe the wind was coming out of the northwest. I don't know when they chose the path of least resistance, but it's interesting to see that they're flying in all directions coming out of the cave. Is there a reason for that, rather than just flying one single direction?
Well, actually, what's so amazing about that image is that most of them are focused going to the southeast, and if you look, every one of them is pretty much the same way, though they're obviously everywhere. We did find that they go toward the area that has the most moisture in the atmosphere, with the idea that the insects are also caught up in that moist air. And so that is probably why they were all going primarily in the same direction, but they will spread out, especially those pups. For some of the ones that we were seeing there, this might have been their first night out ever. So they're going to go anywhere they can.
So fascinating.
Oh, I've been doing this for 19 years, and I have lots of questions that will never get answered, probably. I'm not sure I really answered your question about the males, though. That they're just not needed after they've done their thing.
Okay.
I've always
So
wanted
they form bachelor parties. You were saying.
I'm sorry?
They're done.
They're done, and so that's why they can have these bachelor groups and be, footloose and fancy-free, pretty much. But I think you also asked about when they leave in the Oklahoma, and that's a little bit more iffy. But they are, I promise you, they are all gone before that first serious cold front that we have. And how they know, I don't know. But sometimes it'll be the end of September, or maybe as late as the middle of October. But they're gone.
What's it like inside this cave? What's the weather like in there?
It's awful. There are two groups in Oklahoma that will go into caves and map and check the bats and other fauna for us. The group that we asked to go into Selma Bat Cave right after the department purchased it, they went in to map it for us, and of course they're in hazmat suits and respirators, the whole 9 yards. They came out of there and they said, we're never going back in there again. And these people love going in dark, nasty, smelly places. Apparently, in our cave, the hydrology that created the cave is dropped below the floor, and so there's nothing really on a continuous basis flushing out the guano that's piling up, the bat poop that's piling up in that cave. And in 1995, when they were going through, it was chest high for them. And so they said, no, never going back again, if that tells you anything.
What you said? You said chest high?
Chest high.
The guano?
And it was very spongy because it's obviously, there are beetles that are consuming the guano in the summertime, but over time it's going to get kind of spongy.
Now, I know in Ace Ventura, some tribes eat the guano, right?
Actually, no, I don't think so. I would hope not.
Does anyone drive around with a bumper sticker on their car that says "Guano happens"?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have seen a couple of those.
How far do the bats travel each night? You said they go up about 10,000 feet to feed, but how far away from the cave can they travel?
That's where we thank you guys for that information, because we have looked at the Doppler radar patterns over time. We have found that the bats from Selma Bat Cave will go out, if they need to, as far as 60 miles in one direction and back, so 120 miles round trip in one evening, if they need to eat as many insects as they possibly can.
Now, I imagine that the farmers they're big fans of bats, right? Are the insects that bats are feeding on, are they the type of insects that would do harm to agriculture?
Absolutely. These Mexican free-tailed bats are the the farmer's best friend. Again, that corn borer moth that I visited with you earlier about that helps trigger the Mexican free-tailed bat migration in the spring, they are a horrible pest on crops. And yes, I think for a while farmers weren't aware of the value of the bats, but in the last 10 or 15 years they've become more aware of that value of just these bats. An individual bat has to eat at least half their body weight every night just to survive. And these are females that are also producing milk for the pup, so she's having to consume even more. And for the colony at the Summon Bat Cave, we know that, hang on to your hats, these bats are consuming, just a conservative formula, 10 tons of insects each night.
10 tons?
10 tons.
I thought I misheard that for a second.
No,
wow.
You don't. What that looks like in insects, I have not a clue.
No kidding.
Insects in Oklahoma, man.
And even what's so fun is our visitors, when they leave from watching these bats, now you're still going to get bats hitting your windshield. Bugs hitting your windshield as you're going home. So imagine what it would be like if we didn't have these bats.
Yeah. Wow.
Tell us about the Selman Bat Watch program. When does it start? During the year? I know it's kind of July-ish, but do you have nightly outings? What would people expect? How much does it cost? When's the best time to come on up and check it out?
Well, this became such a popular event. This is our 19th year that we actually had to start doing a drawing to fit the people in. We limit the number of participants each evening because we're trying to protect. The number one objective for the department is that we protect that bat cave. And then that would mean the bats themselves. And so we have 75 people per night. We do this 8 times during July, primarily July. And we have to have a drawing. We just finished our drawing earlier this month and got the nights full. I made 670 people happy, but I made 300 people unhappy. So I have to balance that a little bit. But they receive a confirmation packet. Oh, the cost, there is a fee. We just break even. Of course, we're not making a profit. Just to cover the rental of the buses, bus drivers, those kind of things. And for an adult 13 years and up, it's $12, and children 8 to 13 or 12 is $6. And
now, can we photograph these bats coming out, or is that something that's a no-no?
No, actually, you can do that. We when we first started, we were told to be concerned about that, and over the years, we have found that that's not a problem. What will happen is someone's taken a photo. The bats that are right there, when the flash goes off, they move off, but then the folks get the picture of the bats right behind them, and it doesn't seem to bother them. So pretty good on that. And then out on the location, we started Alabaster Caverns State Park, and then bus them out to our location, and we have a great time. We're in a beautiful setting. We're surrounded by gypsum bluffs. And fortunately, we look toward the west where the cave is. Our visitors never see the cave. We're only a quarter of a mile away, but not seeing the cave we feel is a protection and minimizes disturbance to them. But they come out right over our heads. It's amazing. People love it. We do too.
Now, to people who maybe live in cities like in Woodward or Enid, or let's say Oklahoma City, they come out of their front door and maybe they see a little bat, is perched up underneath the soffit or the overhang, and they're like, "Ooh, it's a bat! Get the broom!" Tell everyone benefits to bats. I mean, should someone be scared if they have a bat hanging out in their garage or their house? I mean, is there anything to worry about?
I can understand their concern because I was brought up to actually be afraid of bats and rabies and that they're very dirty mammals, but they're actually not. They're cleaner than squirrels, for example, but they're constantly grooming. But I can understand their concern because the first thought is rabies. And in all honesty, if I find a bat on the ground and I would be concerned that it's not feeling well, it could be ill. The positive thing here is if a bat has such a high metabolism that if they are sick, it moves through their system very quickly and they die within a couple of days at the most. We get a lot of calls after our storms, especially the wind storms. We have a beautiful bat called an eastern red bat, and she is up in the top of the tallest trees with her 2, 3, or 4 pups on her, and she occasionally will get blown out and we'll get calls. And what we ask folks to do is they put on as many gloves as they are comfortable with, and if they kind of use a dustpan and kind of get her up off the ground, and she's going to immediately start trying to get a grip on something. If they put a dowel rod or a little tree branch, and she'll get a grip, and if they can get her as high up in the side of a tree or on a shrub, she should be able to crawl up higher. These bats need to have a difficult time coming right off the ground. They need to actually have a little bit of drop so they can get lift, so they can have sustained flight. So they need a little bit of help there. If they've got a bat hanging under their eaves, it's just let it alone, and it will be gone in the evening, and it'll be out there for those big brown bats that we have in Oklahoma. They're actually eating mosquitoes. They're flying at the level that the mosquitoes are at, and they are a tremendous consumer of mosquitoes. So it's good to have them around for the insect control.
So how many bat species do we or bat types do we have here in Oklahoma? Is it just that one, or is it 2, or how many?
Well, just like anything in Oklahoma, we are incredibly diverse. There are 45 different species of bats. In the United States, we have 24.
Oh.
How about for the size we are? We are an incredibly diverse state. The 24 different kinds of bats live in Oklahoma.
How many bat caves do we have in the state, do you think?
We have caves in the northeastern quarter of Oklahoma. We have caves in western Oklahoma. We really don't have anything in between. Our eastern caves are limestone, and all but, I would say 5 of them are on private property.
Okay.
The few remaining ones are National Wildlife Refuge, the Ozark Plateau, National Wildlife Refuge, Sequoia National Wildlife Refuge.
Now, when we talk about, sorry, go ahead.
In western Oklahoma and the gypsum, there are probably 80 caves in western Oklahoma, but only 2 are available to the public, and that would be Salmon Bat Cave and Alabaster Cavern State Park. All the rest are either on private property or have special control access on them.
When we talk about these bat caves, how deep into the earth do these caves go?
For the bat caves themselves, they're not very large, and there's a reason for that. These female Mexican free-tailed bats want, in addition to having all their bodies together for protection, they want to also be able to heat up the cave. And in gypsum, they can do that very easily. And so at Selman Bat Cave, where we have probably a little over 500,000 females arrive mid-April, and the pups are born, so you double the population, that cave, which only goes back 720 feet, that has a huge entrance, will actually be as hot inside as it is outside. And that's what they want. The warmer the better, because that way the pups can be putting their energy into development as opposed to trying to maintain their body temperature. So they like it hot, and so but they also need to have a large entrance for their cave. So that's why we might have a lot of caves in western Oklahoma, but only a few are going to meet those requirements: large entrance and a small size.
Okay.
So if we see a bat in the Oklahoma City area, it's unlikely that it's from any of these large bat caves from western and eastern Oklahoma that you're talking about. Where would the bats come from that would just be flying around in metro sky at 9 o'clock at night?
Oh, that's easy. That eastern red bat is our most common bat in Oklahoma, and they are in the urban areas because of our taller trees, more water for those trees. So eastern red bat would be the first one, and probably big brown bat, and then evening bat. And I want to say I've seen the evening bat over their downtown at the canal, over flying over our heads as we're in the boats. So we have, and those bat species are not interested in getting into anything, snoogling into a crevice. They're actually hanging in those trees in the daytime.
I believe I've actually seen a couple times in a Red Hawks game. Is that what maybe?
Yes.
You see them up in the lights? Is that so? Are they going after some of those bugs that are up near the lights?
Absolutely, they're attracted to the insects that are attracted to the lights. It's a great system, and then of course you get to actually see the bats. In your suburban areas, we have folks who tell us that they see the bats around the street lights, and then at the base of the lights you'll see toads that are also consuming bugs down at the base. So who knew a street light could be so important?
Now, I had a guy that just tweeted at me because I've been tweeting out this stuff. He said, and I know you had mentioned bats and rabies.
Yes.
That how big of a concern is that?
For Oklahoma, it's less than 0.5% of animals have. How do I say this? Less than 0.5% of the animals that have tested positive for rabies are bats.
Okay.
The downside is when you get on the health department website for rabies, you'll see a chart, and I remember in 2003 that there were more cows with rabies than bats. But unfortunately, when you open up the chart, they've got a bat up in the upper.
Well, that's not right. Yeah.
Well, we've been working on it. So, but for us wildlife biologists, we never pick up any wild animal without gloves. We would certainly encourage people to leave wildlife alone. You never want to take a chance with that.
What's the biggest predator to the bat population in Oklahoma? I'm thinking hawks.
Hawks, if they're coming out early enough in the evening, hawks like to go to bed kind of early. For where you have this concentration of bats, our visitors actually get to watch gray horned owls come in, and they'll just fly right through the stream of bats because they don't have to be very maneuverable, and just grab one, and they'll fly over to one of the bluffs, and folks get to see them swallowing the bat whole. Last year we had the biggest thrill. We had a peregrine falcon that was there for about 5 nights in a row, and it was apparently staying at the Cimarron River. Because peregrine falcons generally follow the shorebird migration, and so it came up and would go up high, and the visitors would kind of do a play-by-play, like you're at a game. Okay, it's going up. It's folded its wings. It's coming down, and it would shoot through the stream and grab one. It would be back within 2 minutes. It would we could see it pull the wings off and then swallow the bat and then go up again. And on average 5 a night. It never missed. Never missed.
How cool is that?
And we had a photographer get a picture of it, so we were really thrilled with that.
I had a similar moment at my house the other day. It was these little baby robin birds came out of the tree, and they didn't fly. They were hanging around the backyard. I'd been watching them and thought, how cute were they? And until I heard all the other birds screaming in the backyard, this hawk grabbed one of them and took off with it. It's like, man, it's just a sad scenario, but it's life.
It's life, and that's why the robins have 4 or 5 young. They only have to be have 2 survive to be successful, so to speak. So. But it was kind of a thrill. You got to admit, don't you, that there was something, that predator inside of you kind of went, yeah.
Yeah, it was neat. I felt bad for the baby bird, though, because I'd been watching them and taking pictures of them. But I was like, great, thanks a lot, Hawk. Killing my
what's going on up in northern Oklahoma this summer that I know you have your bat watch programs? Anything else going on that you may want to plug out and
Well, sure, absolutely. The Salt Plains National Wildlife Refuge is relatively close to the bat watch area, and so you can still go out and dig crystals, the selenite crystals, and out on the salt flats there are two birds. One's an endangered species, the least tern. You can usually see it out there hunting for little minnows, and the snowy plover is also out there, and it's a candidate for listing. Also, between the Selman Bats, Alabaster Caverns, and the Salt Flats is the Little Sahara. So if you want to go out there and you can rent a sand dune and ride the dune, that's a lot of fun too. So there's a lot of things going on out there in northwest Oklahoma.
Now, to kind of dovetail off, or maybe bat tail?
I was about to say bat tail.
To bat tail off of the Selman Bat Watch, you and I were talking earlier about wildscaping, and to my to my understanding is how can residents in Oklahoma landscape their yard so it's more friendly to draw in birds, hummingbirds, butterflies, and bats. I remember, I moved away, but when I had a home kind of like May and Grand, on May Avenue and Grand Avenue, Oklahoma City, and I had these flowering bushes. I remember doing some yard work, and I thought a huge, I thought it was a bumblebee at first, was right by my face, and I turned over, and it's just hummingbird.
Wow.
And I've loved watching hummingbirds. I'm like, oh, that's so cool, and I would just hang out. Here's a little humming, bzzz, doing his little moving around and going up to the flower and feeding. And what can I do to bring, besides, my hummingbird feeder it leaks.
Right.
So what can I do naturally to bring in hummingbirds?
We encourage folks to provide the plants as opposed to the feeders, though the feeders bring those hummingbirds much closer, and we get to see them and all their behaviors. You want to plant, and the wildlife department can provide you with a list of plants to provide to attract hummingbirds. But the wildscaping is a certification program that the wildlife department administers, and we have a book called Landscaping for Wildlife that's available at our main office there on Lincoln Boulevard, or you can order it from us. And in the back is a voucher that you send in to receive an application. But the idea is to use native plants to attract wildlife and help them out. You mentioned the hummingbird, the butterflies, robins. Those are the frequently listed species on the application that people want to attract. And for hummingbirds, anything red that has a tube-shaped flower, because they don't need to perch, they're just going to hover in front of that flower and drink it up. We have a hummingbird survey that people participate in. It's a little late to get started this year. You needed to have had your feeder up by April 1, and then you take it down November 1. And folks let us know the first day that they see a hummingbird and whether it was a ruby-throated. We now have black-chinned hummingbirds nesting in Oklahoma. That's something that's only happened in the last 20 years. And even though they will track the number of pounds of sugar they spend in a summer to maintain these feeders, that feeder's only supplemental. They still are dependent on insects to keep the young and to nectar at. So even though we see them constantly at our feeders, that's only supplemental to their primary needs.
Now, the hummingbirds in the winter, they migrate across the Gulf of Mexico back to Mexico.
Yes, some of the species actually will go across the Gulf, and we've had the rigs out in the Gulf Coast report. The birds that are migrating through will land on the platforms, and they're resting up as they move on, which is kind of interesting. But they do not, let me get something straight here. Okay, this is a myth. It's only a myth. Hummingbirds do not ride on the back of geese as they migrate. Just want to get that out there now.
There you go. Well, let me ask you maybe segue into what could be another myth or maybe gospel as well. The honeybee. You know, there's been a lot of talk over the years about where are all the bees, where are the honeybees, or are we really having a problem with honeybees, or are we doing okay? I mean, I know I don't see very many. Are we in good shape with honeybees for farms?
Well, and I'm not an expert on this. Let me put that disclaimer out there. But it's my understanding that the honeybee has been experiencing declines due to a fungus. Where the fungus came from, we're not sure, or they're not sure, or someone's not sure. But there are lots of pollinators still out there. There are other bees, wasps, male mosquitoes. You might not know this. It's just the female that bites us for the blood. The male the male mosquito actually nectars fruit, so he's also involved in pollinating. Butterflies pollinate. But it's my understanding that there has been a significant decline in the honeybees. And of course, predation, our wonderful scissortail flycatcher, really likes honeybees.
Mm.
Yes.
What about, I know that it's been a few years since we've heard about this too, but what about the Africanized honeybees? I haven't heard a lot about Africanized honeybees, or the killer bees.
Right. It's my understanding that they maybe are having an impact as well, maybe some out competing the resources, but I'm not sure where they are on that.
Do we know if any Africanized honeybee colonies have been spotted anywhere in Oklahoma recently? Have you heard any?
I have not heard.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if there were, the news would be all over that.
I think it's been a few years. I mean, there are documented. I was looking up. There have been Africanized honeybees here.
Yes.
I think I heard that. Yeah, I do remember hearing that.
It's been a while. I didn't know if they've grown. So.
Mm-hmm.
How's the drought impacting wildlife out here?
Well, that's a really good question. Probably most of our wildlife species in Oklahoma are already adapted to our extremes. Probably doing okay. It's usually the species that have expanded into Oklahoma that would have a difficult time with that, and primarily those are plants that are, especially in southwest Oklahoma, where it's still really, really bad down there. We're seeing some of our native vegetation outcompete some of the invasive species because they can deal with this a lot better. Wildlife tend to be able to take it on the chin and keep going. So it's harder on us, I think, than wildlife.
I imagine. Jonathan, Brad, anything else you guys want to add?
No, I learned a lot about it. So now every time that we see the bats on radar up near Freedom, now we know everything about it, right?
Just wave at us. There'll be people down there watching them from the ground.
I mean, if you need any more weather data, I mean, I'm pretty sure we can provide you with, what we're seeing on our radar. I mean, our radar pings up a little bit higher than Vance Air Force Base radar does there, at least from down here. So yeah, if you guys ever need anything, let us know.
I will call, definitely.
Anything else?
I was going to add too, just talking about bugs and radar. I mean, I don't know if it's evident from the last couple of mornings, but of course we have seen the bugs on radar after an earthquake. Right after an earthquake, they all take off. In fact, I think Mr. Jonathan here even has an image, coincidentally enough, where there they are. This was what, Prague?
Yeah.
No, yeah, November 5th,
11.
11.
November 6, 2011. And then there's a Prague earthquake. You can see the 5.6 magnitude.
Yes.
And I think that's the radar site. And then that hue around, that was all the bugs and birds that took flight from the earthquake.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh my goodness, that is fascinating. Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah,
it's been strong, but not quite a 5.6. Prayerfully, we don't get that again. But according to some of our geologists, Freds, we're headed in that direction.
Right. Yeah, I'm married to a geologist, and that's what he's saying too. So that we'll experience it. But of course, you know, Oklahoma has been under faults for a long, long time. It's just we've been in a period of a smaller amount of activity.
Yeah.
So.
Melinda, is there anything else you wanted to add about the Selman Bat Watch? Anything last minute plug?
Just I can't think of anything, though I wish we could have more people in the evenings to accommodate everyone, but we do this every year, and we have people from other countries who come to the Selman Bat Watch, certainly other states. It's a nice draw, and it's a great way to show off Oklahoma and Northwest Oklahoma.
Well, it sounds exciting. Well, now I didn't even know that this Batch Watch program existed, but I'm going to definitely have to try to find my way to get up there. I will register. Hopefully you will let me in.
I think I can do that. I know someone.
Okay, good to know. Well, hey, our time is up, and so we certainly thank you for coming on our show. And again, we'll find our way up in northern Oklahoma, and hopefully sooner rather than later, and see what all these bats are doing.
Oh, please do. You're welcome anytime, really. Come on up.